Hi, I want to tell you about a story in the Vancouver Sun in late March that I missed at the time, but I read it today and I think it's important enough to talk about because it's not particularly time sensitive. It was about two large public opinion polls that were commissioned in 2013 and 2014. So it's not white hot time sensitive. The polls were done by Leger Marketing, a reputable Quebec pollster. Here's why I want to talk about these polls, because they are rare. They ask questions that are not often asked in Canadian journalism. We have snapshot polls on political races every day, but this poll did something different. It asked about the place of Islam in our Canadian democracy. You can see why that question is not often asked, because it's sensitive subject matter, especially for politically correct journalists. Let me give you the statistics that were reported in the Vancouver Sun about these polls. The question asked of Canadians was, is Western society reconcilable with Islamic culture? That is, can Muslims fit in the liberal West? That's a prickly subject, isn't it? And here's what makes it even more interesting. Leger asked people to identify themselves by their own religion. Here's the answers to the question. 63% of Protestants in Canada said that Islam and Western society is not compatible. They're not compatible. 62% of Jewish Canadians said that. 60% of Catholics in Canada said that. So really not a lot of difference between Jews, Catholics, and Protestants. Now, Canadians who did not identify with any religion, non-religious folks, 46% of them said that Islam and Western society are not compatible. But get this, what did Muslim Canadians themselves say? Well, 42% of Canadian Muslims, close to half, themselves said that Islam and Western liberal culture are not compatible. Now do you see why this poll has not been front page news in every newspaper across this country? It was a large poll. I told you that it was two polls done in 2013 and 2014. Sample size, 2,000 people. The accuracy is plus or minus 2.9%, 19 times out of 20. That's an important poll about a sensitive subject. And I think that if that poll was done today, after the terrorist attacks on our parliament in October, after the rise of the Islamic State overseas and the arrests of other terrorists here in Canada, I think those numbers actually might even be higher now in 2015. What does this mean? I think this means we have to focus on integrating Muslims to Canada and to close that gap. How do we do that? Well, I think it starts before folks even come to Canada. It starts by screening would-be Canadians about their values before they come here. There is a way for Islam and the West to coincide, to reconcile. But that's only, in my opinion, if Muslims renounce the jihad. Some Muslims do. Many people come here to get away from Sharia hellholes like Saudi Arabia and Iran. But some Muslim immigrants to Canada want to bring that Sharia law, that jihad with them. That's the part that's not reconcilable. Once Muslim immigrants are here in Canada, or even Canadian-born Muslims are here, what about the mosques? Are the mosques inculcating Western liberal values along with Islam? Now, some people would say that's impossible. You can't reconcile. Well, I think you can if you focus on a modern, moderate, liberal Islam, the kind that, say, Kemal Ataturk popularized in his country of Turkey about a century ago. I think it's possible. We know it's possible. I think of my old frenemy, Naheed Nenshi, the Muslim mayor of Calgary, an Ismaili Muslim who loves liberalism, loves liberty, loves diversity, separation of mosque and state. I disagree with him on other matters, economic matters, but those are trivial compared to what we have in common. We both love Canadian values. My point is, it is possible to reconcile Islam and Canada. Of course it is. But we must acknowledge that about half of us don't think so. Why? It's because we're letting in people who refuse to reconcile themselves to our values, and even 40+% of Muslims think so too. when we talk about the niqab at citizenship ceremonies, when we talk about gender apartheid, sex segregation at public swimming pools, when we talk about the Valley Park Middle School in the Toronto area where they turn their school cafeteria into a gender segregated mosque every Friday, that just reinforces that Islam and Canada are not reconcilable. If we don't fix this problem, it will only get worse. For TheRebel.media, I'm Ezra Levant.